Can you imagine being a Russian and essentially looking Vladimir Putin in the eye and saying no to him? Well, our next guest did that and has lived to tell about it. Former member of Russia's State Duma, Ilya Ponomarev, was the only Russian politician to buck Putin and vote no to Russia going into Crimea in 2014 and annex it. For his vote against Putin, he was forced into exile. He knows Putin. I spoke to him about Putin and much more. It's nice to see you, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so you voted against Crimea annexation.
I voted for Crimea, but against the annexation of Crimea.
Okay, against annexation. Okay, good. All right, tell me, how did you get forced out?
Actually, I was on a business trip a couple of months since that vote. I was in pretty much of an isolation inside the country, but I was prompted several times. It was Putin relaying a message to me that if you go, we will not prosecute you, so just get lost, please. But I was refusing. And when I was on a business trip in summer 2014, they just closed the border for me so that I will not be able to come back.
Did you try to get back in?
Yeah, I tried. They arrested all my accounts. They stopped my phones from working. And I was lucky to actually stuck being in the US at that time, because I was on a long trip and I could have stuck in a way worse place somewhere in Southeastern Asia. So that was a little bit of luck on my side.
You know, here we often hear stories about people who disagree with Putin. They suddenly fall out windows. They suddenly get poisoned. Obviously, Putin probably is not a big fan of yours. Fair enough, right? He doesn't like you. No. Do you worry about your safety?
No, I naturally do. I'm a mortal person. And in Ukraine, where I live, I have a lot of security around these days. I experienced 2 assassination attempts on me already, but they were discovered by Ukrainian security forces, so here I'm talking to you.
Do you have a number of how many assassination attempts? How many plots?
So there were 2. There was one in 2017 by some Chechen guys working for Kadyrov, and there was another one recently after the invasion has started.
Obviously, you know Putin.
Yeah, I do.
When did you first meet him?
Oh, first time I don't even remember. I think that first time I saw him when he was still vice mayor of St. Petersburg in the 90s. But when he was present, we were meeting several times during events. But I had just one tete-a-tete meeting with him, which was in 2013, I believe.
So what's he like?
He is very likable.
He is likable?
He is very likable. He is a
mean, a guy who's trying to assassinate you doesn't seem particularly likable to me.
No, you should just know it, because that's his professional training as a KGB officer. So when he's talking to you, you feel like for the first time in your life, you got to a person who really understands you. That's the feeling that you are getting, and it's so easy to be fooled. And we saw examples in the past. Remember, President George W. Bush said that I looked in his eyes and saw his soul. That's the kind of impression that he is getting on people.
So what drives him now? I mean, he's under indictment in The Hague for war crimes, including doing what seems unthinkable, taking Ukrainian children and kidnapping them to Russia. So what is driving him?
No, right now I think that the main drive is just simple survival, because he went so far, so he cannot stop.
But so why did he do it in the first place, though? I mean, there's the whole conflict of Crimea, which obviously you disagreed to the annexation, and ended up being blocked from going back to Russia. But I mean, what's his thing about Ukraine?
Look, he, by his nature, he's a mediocrity. And he was studied at school, at university. He was getting like C grades.
Nothing wrong with the C. Had a few myself. Had a few myself.
And he tried to be respectable in the West. He was getting to the position of the president by accident. He was appointed, he was not elected. It was Boris Yeltsin who decided that this guy would be a safe gatekeeper for his family, and let's take him to the first position. He is the safest. But it appeared differently, and Putin always was fighting for this respect in the West. And he was was always, as a gambler, he was raising stakes for others to like him, to respect him, to say that he is the greatest. And he always tried to play this card that, the Western leaders, they are coming and going, but he is there to stay.
Is he responsible for those assassinations that we read about, people falling out of windows and everything? Are these direct orders from him?
No, definitely. I don't think that obviously all of them, because he likes to delegate in these regards. And there are a lot of people around him who are just guessing what the boss wants to do. And they're executing even ungiven orders. But Putin is working as a person who covers the results at the end of the day. So he stops investigations, he protects people, he gives them nice positions, like one of the first high-profile assassinations that the world learned about was against my good friend Sasha Litvinenko in London, who was working with Boris Berezovsky and also was a former KGB officer. And he was poisoned with polonium in London, and it was identified that it was done by someone called Mr. Lugovoy. And after it was discovered, Lugovoy was immediately got elected to the State Duma under Putin's orders to give him immunity from the prosecution.
Well, you say that he's likable, and he's like ordering these assassinations, and then you've got people like the foreign minister Lavrov, who I have on more than one occasion been in the same room with, like when he was at big State Department events overseas, or as a journalist, and he looks, quote, what I would say normal, if such a thing. He doesn't look like the kind of guy who would be ordering assassinations himself, but he is so loyal to Putin.
No, that is right. Lavrov is not the type of guy who is organizing assassinations, obviously.
But he must know about them.
Yeah, everybody knows about them. At one point in time, he was seen as a great reformer of the Russian Foreign Service. But then Putin just corrupts everybody. He's giving money here and there. For Mr. Lavrov, for example, he gave certain commercial loans, which Lavrov was not able to return. And then he's on the hook. And that's the way how Putin, as a mobster, that's the way how he controls people.
Well, a couple weeks ago,
he tried to corrupt me as well. He offered me.
What did he offer you?
He offered me a promotion in my home region of Novosibirsk, and his people were directly offering me money.
Coming up. What does Putin think about President Biden, and what is Putin going to do next? That when the record continues after this.